Marcus Daniels stood nervously outside the pristine glass doors of Verity Gallery, one of the most prestigious art spaces in New York City. Dressed in a worn gray blazer and clutching a canvas bag filled with his work, Marcus took a deep breath. He had spent years honing his craft, pouring his heart into abstract pieces that blended bold colors and intricate textures, inspired by his upbringing and the struggles of his community. This wasn't his first attempt to get noticed by the art world. Smaller galleries had passed him by, offering polite rejections or no response at all. But today, Marcus had decided to aim higher. Verity Gallery was known for launching the careers of countless artists. If he could just get the gallery owner, Simon Delacroix, to see his work, it could change everything. Steeling himself, Marcus pushed open the door. The inside of the gallery was sleek and modern, with bright white walls showcasing oversized paintings that screamed wealth and exclusivity. A few patrons, dressed in designer clothing, sipped champagne as they admired the pieces. Marcus felt out of place, but kept his head high as he approached the front desk. A young receptionist barely looked up from her phone. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone indifferent. "Hi," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the tightness in his chest. "I'm Marcus Daniels, an artist. I was hoping to speak with Mr. Delacroix about potentially showcasing my work here." The receptionist's eyes flicked up briefly, scanning his appearance, before she pressed a button on her headset. "Someone's here to see Simon," she murmured. Minutes later, Simon Delacroix emerged from a back office. He was a tall, middle-aged man with slicked-back silver hair and a tailored suit that screamed money. His sharp blue eyes scanned Marcus quickly, taking in his worn attire and the canvas bag slung over his shoulder. "Yes?" Simon asked, his tone clipped. Marcus offered a polite smile and extended his hand, which Simon ignored. "Thank you for seeing me, Mr. Delacroix. I'm an artist, and I think my work could resonate with your audience. I'd love for you to take a look." Simon raised an eyebrow, the corners of his mouth twitching in amusement. "Your work?" He gestured dismissively at the bag. "Let's see it, then." Heart-pounding, Marcus carefully pulled out one of his paintings, a vibrant piece that depicted a chaotic swirl of color, symbolizing resilience rising from struggle. The textures seemed to leap off the canvas, and the bold hues demanded attention. Simon stared at it for a moment before laughing, a short, condescending chuckle. "Is this a joke?" he asked, his voice loud enough for the nearby patrons to hear. Marcus flinched but held his ground. "No, sir. I put years into developing my style. My pieces tell a story." Simon waved a hand to cut him off. "This thing is amateurish at best. Who would buy this?" "No one who steps foot in this gallery, I can assure you." The receptionist smirked, and a few of the patrons glanced over, some snickering quietly. Marcus felt the heat of embarrassment rising to his face, but he refused to let it show. "Art is subjective," he said calmly. "I believe there's an audience for my work." Simon snorted. "Not here, there isn't. Listen, kid, do yourself a favor and find a new career. You're clearly out of your depth." The words hit Marcus like a punch to the gut, but he nodded slowly, tucking his painting back into the bag. "Thank you for your time," he said quietly, turning to leave. As he stepped out onto the bustling city street, Marcus felt a mix of humiliation and anger. His dream of being taken seriously as an artist seemed further away than ever, but he refused to give up. Standing on the sidewalk, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through his contacts until he found a name, Lila Montoya. She was a friend and fellow artist who had always believed in his talent. "Lila," Marcus said when she answered. "I need your help. I'm done waiting for these people to take me seriously. It's time to prove them wrong." And with that, Marcus made a silent vow: one day, Simon Delacroix would regret underestimating him. Marcus spent the next week locked in his small apartment, pouring every ounce of emotion into his work. The cruel words Simon Delacroix had thrown at him echoed in his mind like a mocking mantra: amateurish. No one would buy this. Instead of letting the rejection defeat him, Marcus channeled his frustration into his art. Each stroke of his brush was deliberate, driven by a mixture of anger, determination, and hope. His new pieces were even bolder than before, exploding with raw emotion and colors that seemed alive. Meanwhile, word about Marcus's humiliating experience at Verity Gallery spread quickly within his small artist circle. Some pitied him, while others offered encouragement. But Lila Montoya, his closest friend and a painter with a growing following, refused to let him wallow. "You've got something special, Marcus," Lila said one evening as they sat in her studio. "The problem isn't your art, it's that these people can't see past their own biases. Simon and his gallery cater to the elite, and they're blind to anything that doesn't fit their narrow definition of art." Marcus sighed, rubbing his temples. "I get that, Lila. But how do I make them see? How do I prove them wrong when they won't even give me a chance?" Lila smirked and leaned in. "You don't wait for their permission. You make them notice you. There's a local event coming up, a community art showcase. It's small, but it draws in critics and influencers. It's your chance to get your work in front of the right eyes." Marcus hesitated. "A community showcase? That's a far cry from Verity Gallery." Lila raised an eyebrow. "True. But it's a step in the right direction. Besides, one good critic noticing your work could change everything. Trust me." Reluctantly, Marcus agreed. Over the next few days, he worked tirelessly to prepare his submissions for the showcase. By the time the event arrived, he had created 3 powerful new pieces, each telling a different story of struggle, resilience, and triumph. The showcase was held in a modest outdoor space in Harlem, far from the glitz and glamour of galleries like Verity. Artists of all backgrounds set up their displays, eager to share their work with the public. Marcus felt a flicker of hope as he watched people wander through the exhibits, stopping to admire the art. But as the hours passed, Marcus couldn't shake a nagging sense of doubt. His booth was modest compared to others, and only a handful of people had stopped to look at his work. He tried to remain optimistic, but his confidence wavered. Then, a turning point. A middle-aged woman in a vibrant scarf approached his booth. She studied one of his pieces, a massive canvas filled with bold streaks of red and gold, evoking the image of a phoenix rising from ashes. "This is extraordinary," the woman said, her voice laced with genuine awe. "Thank you," Marcus said, standing a little straighter. The woman extended her hand. "I'm Evelyn Carter, a freelance art critic. Do you mind if I take a few photos and write about your work? Pieces like this deserve to be seen." Marcus's heart leaped. "Of course. Thank you so much." Evelyn spent several minutes photographing his art and asking thoughtful questions about his process and inspiration. By the time she left, Marcus felt a spark of hope reignite. 2 days later, that spark turned into a wildfire. Evelyn's glowing review of Marcus's work went viral. Published on her blog and shared across social media platforms, the article described Marcus's art as a raw and powerful commentary on the human experience and praised his innovative use of texture and color. Within days, Marcus's inbox was flooded with inquiries from collectors, gallery owners, and even journalists. His Instagram following tripled overnight, and his name became the talk of the art community. Among those who stumbled upon Evelyn's article was Simon Delacroix. He scrolled through the photos of Marcus's work with a growing sense of disbelief. How could the same amateurish artist he had dismissed so easily now be the subject of such widespread acclaim? Simon's disbelief quickly turned into irritation. He slammed his laptop shut, muttering under his breath. But deep down, a seed of unease began to grow. Meanwhile, Marcus basked in his newfound attention, though he remained grounded. "This is just the beginning," he told Lila during a celebratory dinner. "I'm not stopping until I've proven to people like Simon that artists like me belong in their world, too." Lila raised her glass. "You've already proven it, Marcus. Now it's their turn to catch up." The buzz surrounding Marcus's art continued to grow, creating a whirlwind that Marcus could hardly keep up with. Collectors from all over were reaching out, offering to purchase his pieces at prices he never dreamed possible. Every notification on his phone felt like another step toward the validation he had been chasing for so long. Among the people who noticed Evelyn Carter's article was Amelia Laurent, a highly regarded curator known for championing underrepresented artists. Her gallery, Laurent Studios, was smaller than Verity Gallery but had a reputation for hosting cutting-edge exhibitions that often went viral. Amelia reached out to Marcus with an invitation he couldn't ignore. Mr. Daniels, her email read, "I've seen your work, and I must say, it's a breath of fresh air. I'd love to discuss the possibility of featuring you in an upcoming exhibition. Let me know if you'd be interested." Marcus stared at the email, his heart racing. This wasn't just an opportunity, it was a turning point. After years of struggling to make ends meet as an artist, here was someone offering him the kind of platform he had always dreamed of. When Marcus met Amelia at her gallery, her enthusiasm for his work was evident. She greeted him warmly and wasted no time getting to the point. "Your art tells a story," she said, gesturing toward the large canvases he had brought for their meeting. "It's bold, emotional, and unapologetically honest. That's exactly what the art world needs right now. I want to feature you in our Voices Unseen exhibition, a showcase dedicated to artists who bring fresh perspectives to the table." Marcus could hardly believe his ears. "That sounds amazing," he said, his voice steady despite the excitement bubbling inside him. "Thank you for seeing the value in my work." Amelia smiled. "The value in your work is undeniable, Marcus. Now let's make sure the rest of the world sees it, too." The weeks leading up to the exhibition were a blur of activity. Marcus worked tirelessly, creating new pieces that built on the themes of his earlier work. His apartment-turned-studio became a chaos of paint-splattered canvases and half-empty coffee cups. As the opening night of the exhibition approached, Marcus couldn't help but feel a mix of nerves and excitement. Amelia's gallery had spared no expense in promoting the event, and the guest list included prominent art critics, collectors, and even a few celebrities. When the night finally arrived, Marcus stood in the center of the gallery, surrounded by his work. The space was packed with people, their conversations a low hum of excitement. Seeing his paintings displayed so prominently, with spotlights highlighting every detail, felt surreal. As guests moved through the exhibition, Marcus overheard snippets of conversation. "This is incredible. The textures almost feel alive. His use of color is so evocative. I can't stop staring at this piece. This guy's going to be huge, I'm calling it now." Amelia introduced Marcus to several influential figures, including a major art collector named Jonathan Pierce. Jonathan was known for his impeccable taste and for discovering some of the biggest names in contemporary art. "Marcus," Jonathan said, shaking his hand firmly. "Your work is extraordinary. I'd love to add one of your pieces to my collection." Marcus tried to play it cool, but his heart was pounding. "Thank you, Mr. Pierce. It's an honor to hear that from someone like you." As the night went on, Marcus's work garnered glowing praise from nearly everyone in attendance. By the end of the evening, Amelia approached him with a wide smile. "Marcus," she said, "you've made a splash tonight. Several collectors have already expressed interest in buying your pieces, and I think this is just the beginning. You're about to become a household name in the art world." Marcus felt a wave of gratitude wash over him. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to believe that his dreams were within reach. But as he left the gallery that night, his thoughts drifted back to Simon Delacroix. While Marcus was thrilled about his newfound success, a part of him couldn't forget the way Simon had dismissed him so callously. "I'm not done yet," Marcus muttered to himself as he walked home. Not until Simon sees what he missed out on. The exhibition at Laurent Studios was a massive success. Marcus sold nearly every piece he had displayed, and his name was suddenly on the lips of collectors, critics, and art enthusiasts around the world. Overnight, Marcus Daniels became a sensation, a symbol of raw talent and perseverance, breaking through the barriers of an exclusive and often dismissive art world. What followed was a whirlwind of opportunities. Prominent galleries in cities like Los Angeles, London, and Paris reached out to feature his work. Prestigious magazines published profiles on him, lauding his unique style and the powerful stories his art conveyed. The price of his paintings skyrocketed, with some selling for 6 or even 7 figures at auction. Marcus's life was transforming before his eyes. He moved out of his cramped apartment and into a spacious loft in Brooklyn, where he set up a proper studio. For the first time, he could afford to buy the best materials without worrying about the cost. He even hired an assistant to help manage the flood of requests coming his way. Despite his success, Marcus remained humble. He continued to create art that was deeply personal, drawing on his experiences and the stories of his community. He also made a point to uplift other underrepresented artists, using his platform to highlight their work and advocate for greater diversity in the art world. One afternoon, as Marcus was finishing a piece for an upcoming solo show in London, his phone buzzed with a notification that made him pause. It was an email from Verity Gallery. Dear Mr. Daniels, we would like to formally extend an invitation for you to visit Verity Gallery to discuss the possibility of a collaboration. Your work has captivated the art world, and we believe it would resonate strongly with our clientele. Sincerely, Simon Delacroix. Marcus stared at the screen, a mix of emotions churning inside him. He had waited for this moment, the chance to show Simon how wrong he had been, but now that it was here, he felt no rush to respond. Instead, he forwarded the email to Lila, who called him seconds later. Are you serious? Lila said, laughing. This guy has some nerve. He does, Marcus agreed, leaning back in his chair. But I can't lie, it's satisfying to know he's eating his words right now. What are you going to do? Marcus smirked. Oh, I'll go. But not to collaborate. I think it's time I pay Simon a visit, and remind him of who I am. The next day, Marcus walked into Verity Gallery with an air of quiet confidence. Unlike his first visit, this time he wasn't clutching a worn canvas bag or wearing a threadbare blazer. Dressed in a tailored suit, he looked every bit the successful artist he had become. The receptionist, still the same one from his first visit, froze when she saw him. Her dismissive attitude had vanished, replaced by a nervous smile. Mr. Daniels, she stammered. Welcome back. Mr. Delacroix is expecting you. Right this way. Simon Delacroix greeted Marcus in his office, with a wide, practiced smile. Marcus. What a pleasure to finally meet you again, he said, extending his hand. Marcus shook it briefly, his expression unreadable. It's been a while, Mr. Delacroix, he said coolly. Simon gestured for Marcus to sit, then launched into a rehearsed pitch. He praised Marcus's work, calling it visionary and exactly what Verity Gallery needs. He even apologized for his previous behavior, though his tone lacked sincerity. I'll admit, Simon said with a chuckle, I didn't see your potential back then. But I'd love to make things right. Let's talk about how we can bring your work to Verity Gallery. I'm thinking a solo exhibition, perhaps? Marcus let him finish before leaning forward, a small smile playing on his lips. Mr. Delacroix, he said, I didn't come here to collaborate. I came here to make you an offer. Simon blinked, caught off guard. An offer? Yes, Marcus said, standing up and pulling a folder from his briefcase. I want to buy Verity Gallery. The words hung in the air, like a thunderclap. Simon's jaw dropped. You're joking. I'm not, Marcus said, his tone firm. I've already spoken with my lawyers, and they've assured me that a purchase is entirely feasible. This gallery has a lot of potential that you've been squandering. Simon sputtered, struggling to form a response. But, why? You're already successful. You don't need this gallery. Marcus's gaze hardened. I don't need it. But I want it. I want to turn this place into a space where artists like me, artists you've overlooked, can thrive. And I want you to know that the person you dismissed as amateurish is now in a position to own everything you've built. Simon sat back in his chair, his face pale. For the first time in his life, he was at a loss for words. Marcus smiled, closing the folder and tucking it back into his briefcase. "Think it over," he said, standing to leave. "But don't take too long. I have other galleries to buy." As Marcus walked out of Verity Gallery, the receptionist stared at him with wide eyes. He offered her a polite nod before stepping back onto the bustling streets of New York. For the first time, Marcus felt a sense of closure. He wasn't just proving Simon wrong, he was reclaiming the power that had been denied to him for so long. The offer to buy Verity Gallery sent ripples through the local art scene. Rumors spread like wildfire: Marcus Daniels is buying Verity, fueling both excitement and intrigue. Collectors, artists, and curators speculated about what this would mean for the future of one of the city's most exclusive galleries. Simon Delacroix, meanwhile, was in a state of crisis. He had spent days trying to process Marcus's proposal. On one hand, selling the gallery to the very man he had mocked would be a humiliating defeat. On the other, Verity was struggling financially. The influx of new, younger collectors favoring bold, contemporary art had left Simon's traditional and elitist curation out of touch. The gallery's reputation was waning, and Simon knew it. As Simon wrestled with his pride, Marcus received an invitation from another prestigious gallery to feature in their next show. While flattered, Marcus decided to focus on his bigger vision. His plan wasn't just to succeed as an artist, it was to create opportunities for others. One afternoon, as Marcus sat in his studio, sketching ideas for a new series, his assistant, Carla, entered with a hesitant expression. "Marcus," she said, "you have a call from Simon Delacroix." Marcus smirked, setting down his pencil. "Put him through." Simon's voice came through the speakerphone, strained but polite. "Mr. Daniels," he began, "I've given your proposal some thought, and I'm willing to entertain it. Perhaps we can meet to discuss the details." "Good choice," Marcus said smoothly. "I'll have my team arrange the meeting." The following week, Marcus returned to Verity Gallery, this time with his lawyer and financial advisor in tow. They met Simon in the gallery's conference room, where the tension was palpable. Simon's facade of confidence cracked under Marcus's calm demeanor. As they reviewed the terms of the sale, Simon couldn't help but feel like a spectator in his own downfall. "Why are you doing this?" Simon asked finally, unable to keep the bitterness from his voice. "Is this revenge?" Marcus looked at him thoughtfully. "Revenge? No. This isn't about you, Simon. It's about the artists who never got the chance they deserved, because people like you couldn't see past their biases. It's about building something better." Simon looked away, his face tight with frustration. Once the paperwork was signed, Marcus extended a hand. "Thank you, Simon," he said. "I'll make sure this gallery becomes something you can be proud of, eventually." Simon hesitated but shook Marcus's hand, his grip weak. "I hope you know what you're doing," he muttered. "I do," Marcus replied confidently. After the purchase was finalized, Marcus wasted no time transforming Verity Gallery. The first thing he did was announce its rebranding. The gallery would now be called the Phoenix Atelier, symbolizing rebirth and the rise of underrepresented voices in the art world. Next, Marcus assembled a diverse team of curators and staff, ensuring the gallery reflected the inclusivity he had always envisioned. He reached out to emerging artists from marginalized communities, offering them a platform to showcase their work. The first exhibition under Marcus's leadership, titled Perspectives Reclaimed, featured artists from around the world, each telling stories of resilience, identity, and hope. The event was a resounding success, drawing record-breaking crowds and earning praise from critics. The opening night of the Phoenix Atelier was nothing short of magical. The once sterile space had been transformed into a vibrant, welcoming haven for creativity. As guests wandered through the gallery, Marcus stood near the entrance, watching with pride as his vision came to life. Among the attendees was Simon Delacroix. He lingered near the back, his expression unreadable as he observed the thriving gallery he had once dismissed Marcus from. At one point, Marcus approached Simon with a glass of champagne. Enjoying the show? He asked, his tone polite. Simon sighed, swirling his drink. I'll admit, Marcus, you've done something remarkable here. You've built something I never could. That's true, Marcus said, a small smile playing on his lips. But you could have, Simon. You just had to believe in the right people. Simon nodded slowly, a flicker of regret passing over his face. Perhaps you're right. I was too blind to see it back then. Marcus clinked his glass against Simon's. Here's to seeing things more clearly now. As the evening went on, Marcus felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had not only proven himself, but had also created a legacy that would uplift others for years to come. As the success of the Phoenix Atelier continued to grow, Marcus's transformation of the gallery became a symbol of change in the art world. What had once been an exclusive, gate-kept space now buzzed with innovation and inclusivity. For Marcus, every new exhibition felt like another victory, not just for him, but for every artist who had been overlooked or undervalued. Meanwhile, Simon Delacroix had quietly taken a back seat. Though he still occasionally attended events at the gallery he once owned, he now avoided the spotlight, content to observe Marcus's work from the shadows. However, he wasn't the only one watching. One afternoon, while Marcus was in the middle of reviewing proposals for the gallery's next showcase, Carla walked into his office, her face alight with excitement. Marcus, you're going to want to see this, she said, holding out her tablet. On the screen was an article from a major art publication. The headline read, Marcus Daniels buys a second gallery, expanding his vision across the city. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. What is this? Carla grinned. It's real. A collector just posted about it. Apparently, you've been making waves in the art world for more than just your exhibitions. Word is spreading that you're buying up underperforming galleries and turning them into thriving spaces for new artists. Marcus leaned back in his chair, processing the news. He had indeed purchased a smaller gallery in Queens a few months ago, but he hadn't expected the move to draw such attention. Looks like people are noticing, Marcus said, a small smile creeping across his face. Carla nodded. And they're loving it. Your vision for inclusivity is resonating with the art world, and beyond. But... She hesitated. But what? Marcus asked, raising an eyebrow. There's another gallery rumored to be up for sale, Carla said carefully. A pretty big one. And people are speculating that you're eyeing it. Marcus frowned. Which gallery? Carla hesitated before answering. Verity Gallery. For a moment, Marcus didn't respond. The idea was both surprising and oddly poetic. Though he already owned Verity Gallery, rebranding it as the Phoenix Atelier, rumors of a second purchase could complicate things. That's not true, Marcus said finally. I'm focused on making the Phoenix Atelier the best it can be. Carla nodded. I figured as much. But still, it's wild to see how much people are paying attention to you now. You're not just an artist anymore, Marcus, you're a force in the industry. That evening, Marcus sat in his studio, reflecting on how far he had come. The journey from being mocked and dismissed to becoming a gallery owner and an advocate for others felt surreal. But he also knew that his work wasn't done. There were still artists out there struggling to find their voice, still people like Simon who held the power to uplift, but chose to hoard it instead. Marcus picked up his phone and dialed a number. Hello, Jonathan, he said when the art collector answered. I've got an idea I want to run by you. It's ambitious, but I think it could change the game. Jonathan Pierce, always intrigued by Marcus's ideas, chuckled. I'm all ears. What are you thinking? A network of galleries, Marcus said, his mind racing as he spoke. Spaces in different cities, all dedicated to showcasing diverse voices. We'd collaborate with local communities, mentor emerging artists, and host events that connect people across the art world. There was a pause on the other end of the line before Jonathan responded, his voice brimming with excitement. That's brilliant, Marcus. I'm in. With Jonathan's support, Marcus began laying the groundwork for his vision. What started as a single gallery rebranding now had the potential to become a movement. But even as he expanded his reach, Marcus never forgot the moment that started it all, the day Simon Delacroix dismissed him as nothing more than an amateur. The art world was changing. Slowly, but surely, Marcus Daniels had become a driving force in that transformation. His work, once relegated to the margins, was now seen as a beacon of hope and inspiration. His galleries were thriving, and his vision for an inclusive, diverse art world was becoming a reality. Over the months following his successful expansion, Marcus and Jonathan had set up several more galleries in key cities across the US and Europe, each one continuing the mission of providing a platform for underrepresented artists. What began as a single, humble space had now blossomed into a global movement. The Phoenix Atelier was more than just a gallery, it was a hub for creativity, mentorship, and change. Marcus had curated exhibits from artists whose work had once been dismissed or overlooked, making them the stars of the contemporary art scene. The gallery's reputation was beyond just being a venue for selling art, it was a symbol of a new age in the art world. One evening, as Marcus stood in front of one of his favorite pieces, an abstract painting by a young artist from Senegal, he took a moment to reflect. It had been a long journey, but he had stayed true to his mission. He had rebuilt the Phoenix Atelier from the ground up, transforming it from a symbol of elitism to a place of opportunity and empowerment. Despite his success, Marcus still had unfinished business. He had promised himself that Simon Delacroix would be a part of the transformation. The same Simon who had mocked him, underestimated him, and doubted his talent. Now, years later, Marcus knew it was time to confront that part of his past. The phone rang in Simon's quiet office at the now much smaller Verity Gallery. Simon had stepped down from his position as gallery owner months ago, unable to compete with Marcus's rapidly expanding empire. His once charming gallery had become a shadow of its former self, the high-end collectors he'd catered to no longer showing interest in his offerings. "Hello?" Simon answered, his voice weary. "Simon, it's Marcus," came the response. For a brief moment, there was silence on the line. Simon hadn't expected to hear from Marcus again. "Marcus? How are you?" Simon finally asked, his voice guarded but curious. "I'm doing well. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something," Marcus said, his tone calm. "I think it's time we have a conversation. Not about the gallery, not about business, but about everything that's happened between us." Simon felt a pang of guilt and unease. His mind raced back to the day he had dismissed Marcus, the arrogant, dismissive comments he had made. He had never imagined that Marcus would rise to the heights he had. And yet, here he was, calling, offering a chance to make peace. "I'd like that," Simon said, his voice quieter now. "I'll meet you." The following week, Marcus met Simon at a quiet cafe in the city. The once proud and overconfident Simon Delacroix now looked older, his sharp features softened by time. He had lost much of the bravado that had defined his earlier years, and the weight of his failures was evident in the way he carried himself. They sat across from each other, sipping coffee in the late afternoon sunlight. For a moment, neither spoke. Then, Marcus broke the silence. "I wanted to thank you," he said, surprising Simon. Simon raised an eyebrow. "Thank me? For what?" "For everything," Marcus continued. "For the mockery. For the rejection. For underestimating me." Simon blinked, unsure of how to respond. Marcus smiled. "It was those things that pushed me to prove myself. And I did it, not to get back at you, but to prove that I was worth more than you saw in me." Simon exhaled slowly, nodding. "I was wrong. I see that now. I should have seen it when you first walked into the gallery." Marcus's eyes softened. "I know you weren't the only one who thought that way. But you were the one with the power to help, and you chose not to. That's okay, though. I've created something better, and I'm proud of what I've done." There was a pause as Simon processed Marcus's words. I wish I had given you that chance, Simon said, a hint of remorse in his voice. I wish I had been a part of what you've become. Marcus nodded. It's not too late to be a part of it. You don't have to keep running from what happened, Simon. You can make a choice now, be a part of the future or stay in the past. Simon took a deep breath, his gaze steady. What do you mean? Marcus leaned in slightly. I'm opening up the Phoenix Atelier to more opportunities. If you want to help with mentoring younger artists, offer guidance, or just be involved in a way that honors the past mistakes and rebuilds something beautiful, there's a place for you. Simon was taken aback. The offer was unexpected, and for a brief moment, he felt his pride stir. But the longer he thought about it, the more the idea began to make sense. It was an opportunity to right some wrongs. To do something that mattered, not just for him, but for others. I'll think about it, Simon said slowly. Marcus smiled, standing to leave. Take your time. But know that the door's open, Simon. And maybe it's time for both of us to make something new. As Marcus walked away, Simon sat back in his chair, a weight lifted off his shoulders. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but he also knew it was a road worth walking. Months passed, and the Phoenix Atelier continued to flourish, expanding into new cities and becoming a global beacon of diversity, inclusion, and artistic innovation. Marcus's work, once relegated to the fringes, was now celebrated worldwide, and his legacy was solidified not just in his paintings but in the opportunities he had created for others. Simon Delacroix never fully returned to the art world in the same capacity, but he did become involved in mentoring young artists through Marcus's galleries. It was his way of redeeming himself, of acknowledging the role he had played in Marcus's journey, and, in a small but meaningful way, making amends. In the end, Marcus realized that success wasn't just about proving others wrong, it was about giving others the chance to prove themselves right. And in that, he had created something far more valuable than fame or fortune, a space where artists, no matter their background, could find their voice. The Phoenix Atelier was a place of rebirth, not just for Marcus, but for everyone who walked through its doors.